The impossible demand. The Grand Hall of the United Earth Council buzzed with tension. Delegates from all corners of the globe sat in silence, their eyes locked on the enormous holographic screen at the center. The image of a Zephyrian ambassador, a towering figure with shimmering blue skin and piercing black eyes, loomed over them. "You have 7 days," the Zephyrian's voice boomed, cold and sharp. "Surrender your oceans or face extinction." The room erupted in murmurs of disbelief. Earth's leaders exchanged anxious glances. The demand was beyond outrageous. It was impossible. General Aaron Hart, a battle-hardened soldier with gray streaks in his hair and a voice that commanded respect, rose from his seat. He walked to the center of the hall, his boots echoing on the marble floor. He turned to face the alien ambassador, his expression stern yet calm. "The oceans are the lifeblood of our planet," Hart said, his voice steady. "You ask us to destroy the very thing that sustains us. We cannot comply with such a demand." The Zephyrian's eyes narrowed. "Do not mistake our patience for weakness, General Hart. We have the power to obliterate your planet. This is your only chance to survive." The hall fell silent. The weight of the threat hung heavily in the air. The Zephyrian ambassador's image flickered and disappeared, leaving the humans to grapple with the impossible choice. As the meeting adjourned, General Hart gathered his team in a private chamber. The group consisted of the brightest minds Earth had to offer: scientists, strategists, and military leaders. Among them was Dr. Elena Vega, a young but brilliant biologist known for her groundbreaking work on Earth's ecosystems. "We need answers," Hart said, his voice firm. "Why do they want our oceans? What's their endgame?" Dr. Vega adjusted her glasses. "If they're willing to threaten us with extinction, their need must be critical. It could be for survival, resources, or something we can't yet understand." "We don't have the luxury of time to figure it out," said Captain Daniel Reeves, the leader of Earth's space fleet. "If they attack, we need to be ready." Hart nodded. "Agreed. But a fight against them would be suicide. We need to understand their motives first." Meanwhile, the streets of Earth buzzed with fear and speculation. News of the Zephyrian demand spread like wildfire. People gathered around holographic displays, watching experts debate the aliens' intentions. Some called for surrender, arguing that humanity couldn't afford to challenge a superior species. Others demanded resistance, even if it meant war. In the shadows, a team of covert operatives prepared for a high-stakes mission. Their goal: infiltrate a Zephyrian ship and uncover the truth about their demands. The team, led by Agent Kai Monroe, was equipped with advanced stealth technology and an unshakable determination. "This mission is a one-way ticket," Monroe said to his team as they boarded a cloaked shuttle. "If we fail, Earth won't stand a chance. Let's make it count." Back at the council, General Hart addressed the leaders. "We have faced impossible odds before. Humanity has always risen to the challenge. This time will be no different. But what if we're wrong?" asked Prime Minister Nadia Lee, her voice trembling. "What if fighting them means the end of us?" Hart's gaze softened. "If we surrender our oceans, we doom ourselves anyway. We must show them that humanity will not be bullied into submission." The council voted unanimously to reject the Zephyrian demand. Hart sent a defiant message to the alien fleet: "Earth will not bow." As the 7-day deadline loomed, Earth's defenses were bolstered. Space stations hummed with activity as engineers worked tirelessly to upgrade weapon systems. Scientists pored over data, searching for any weaknesses in the Zephyrian technology. The tension was palpable. Every second felt like an eternity. Families clung to one another, unsure if they would see another sunrise. Soldiers prepared for a battle they might not survive. And yet, amidst the fear, there was a spark of hope, a belief that humanity's resilience would prevail. On the final night before the deadline, General Hart stood alone on the observation deck of Earth's primary space station. He stared out at the stars, his thoughts heavy. "Are we ready?" Dr. Vega's voice broke the silence. Hart turned to see her standing behind him. He sighed. No one's ever ready for something like this. But we'll fight. We have no choice. Dr. Vega nodded. I've been studying their biology. If we can get more data, we might find a way to counter them. But we'll need time. Time, Hart said bitterly. The one thing we don't have. The two stood in silence, watching the Earth below, a planet teetering on the brink of annihilation, yet refusing to back down. As the clock struck midnight, the Zephyrians sent their final message. Your time is up. Prepare for extinction. Hart's jaw tightened. Let them come, he muttered under his breath. We'll show them what humanity is made of. The battle for Earth was about to begin. The hidden truth. The Zephyrian mothership hovered silently in Earth's orbit, an imposing shadow against the backdrop of the stars. Its sleek alien design pulsed with an eerie blue glow, as if alive. Deep within its cold metallic walls, secrets waited to be uncovered, secrets that could decide the fate of humanity. Agent Kai Monroe's team floated silently through the void of space in their cloaked shuttle. The silence was broken only by the steady hum of the ship's engines and the whispers of their nervous breathing. Approaching insertion point, whispered Monroe, his voice calm but firm. Beside him, Technician Riley adjusted the controls, her hands steady despite the tension. Cloaking is holding, but their sensors are tight. One mistake, and we're toast. Let's make sure we don't make one, Monroe replied, fastening his helmet. The team of 6 operatives had been handpicked for their expertise, engineers, hackers, and combat specialists. Their mission: infiltrate the Zephyrian mothership, retrieve intel on their motives, and escape undetected. As the shuttle docked stealthily onto the alien hull, Monroe took a deep breath. Remember, no heroics. Get the data, and we're out. Move fast. Stay quiet. The team entered through an airlock, their suits adapting to the alien atmosphere. The interior of the ship was as alien as its exterior, smooth, organic-like walls that pulsed faintly, as though the ship were alive. Motion sensors disabled, whispered Riley, her fingers dancing across her tablet. The team advanced, their footsteps silent. They passed through dimly lit corridors, their surroundings unnerving. Strange, translucent tubes lined the walls, filled with a glowing liquid that pulsed rhythmically. "What is that?" asked Corporal Dax, his voice barely above a whisper. "Let's hope we don't find out," Monroe replied, his eyes scanning every shadow. They reached the central data core, a vast chamber filled with floating holographic displays and alien symbols. Dr. Anya Greer, the team's linguist, stepped forward, her eyes widening as she studied the alien text. "This isn't just a control room," she murmured. "It's a repository, a record of everything they've done." "Then download it," Monroe ordered. As Greer began extracting data, an alarm blared suddenly, the alien walls flashing the deep red. They'd spotted us. Riley shouted, her hands frantically trying to shut down the alert. "No, wait," Greer exclaimed, her voice trembling. "This isn't an alarm. It's something else. A warning." The team froze. Before anyone could respond, a holographic display activated, revealing a projection of a desolate planet. Its surface was cracked and dry, its oceans long gone. "What are we looking at?" Monroe asked, his voice grim. Greer's face paled. "It's a warning for themselves. This is what they did to another planet. They drained its oceans, and it died." As the realization sank in, heavy, metallic footsteps echoed through the corridors. The team tensed. "Hostiles incoming," Dax growled, readying his weapon. "Greer, grab what you can," Monroe barked. "Everyone else, defensive positions." The operatives braced themselves as a squad of Zephyrian sentries entered the chamber, their sleek, insect-like bodies moving with unnerving precision. Blue energy pulsed in their weapons as they opened fire. The team responded with precision, their bullets and energy pulses ricocheting through the room. Monroe ducked behind a console, firing back as Riley hacked into the ship's systems. "Doors locked," Riley called. "But they'll breach in 2 minutes." "That's all we need," Greer replied, her fingers flying over the controls. The firefight grew more intense as more sentries poured in. Monroe knew they were outnumbered. "Time to move," he shouted, throwing a smoke grenade. In the chaos, the team retreated, Greer clutching a drive filled with the stolen data. As they ran, a strange, guttural roar echoed through the corridors. "That's not a sentry," Dax muttered, fear creeping into his voice. Suddenly, a massive figure emerged from the shadows. It was a Zephyrian elite, its towering form exuding menace. Its armor shimmered, deflecting bullets effortlessly. "Keep moving," Monroe yelled, firing a shot that only seemed to irritate the creature. The team sprinted toward the shuttle, the elite chasing them relentlessly. Dax turned, firing a grenade launcher at the creature. The explosion rocked the corridor, slowing the elite but not stopping it. "Go," Dax shouted, holding his ground. Monroe hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "We'll come back for you." The team reached the shuttle and launched just as the elite burst into the docking bay. From the safety of their craft, Monroe watched as the figure grew smaller, its glowing eyes locked onto them until the shuttle disappeared into the darkness. Back on Earth, the data was analyzed. The findings were grim. The Zephyrians had done this to dozens of planets, each left barren and lifeless. The mysterious compound they sought was a byproduct of Earth's unique aquatic life, a compound their species depended on for survival. "They're not just taking our oceans," Dr. Greer explained to General Hart. "They're taking everything. Once they're done, Earth will be a wasteland." Hart's face hardened. "Then we have no choice. We fight." The room fell silent as the weight of the mission settled on them. Humanity had uncovered the truth, but at a terrible cost. The Zephyrians weren't just a threat. They were a force of extinction. And now, Earth's survival depended on outsmarting an enemy that had conquered countless worlds before them. The battle was no longer about negotiation or survival. It was about defiance. Humanity's secret weapon. The war room at the United Earth Council buzzed with activity. Holographic maps of Earth's defenses flickered in the air, surrounded by scientists, engineers, and military officers. General Aaron Hart stood at the center, his gaze fixed on the glowing image of the Zephyrian mothership orbiting Earth. "They've drained the life from every planet they've touched," Hart began, his voice resolute. "But this time, they've underestimated us. We don't just survive. We fight." In a secret underground lab, Dr. Elena Vega worked tirelessly with her team. The data retrieved from the Zephyrian ship revealed the key to their survival. The mysterious compound they needed came from Earth's oceans, but its exact origin was even more intriguing. It was tied to a microorganism, a primitive life form thriving deep in Earth's waters. These microorganisms were unlike anything known, capable of producing a biochemical compound that the Zephyrians depended on like oxygen. "This isn't just about water," Vega explained to Hart during a private briefing. "The compound reacts to their physiology in a way that keeps them alive. If we can manipulate it, we might turn it into a weapon." Hart raised an eyebrow. "A weapon? You mean poison?" Vega hesitated. "Not exactly. We could bioengineer the compound to destabilize their biology. It wouldn't kill them outright, but it would make them vulnerable. And if we amplify it enough, it could disable their technology too." Hart nodded slowly. "You have my approval. But time is short." Elsewhere, Captain Daniel Reeves oversaw the preparation of Earth's space fleet. Ships bristling with weapons and experimental shielding were assembled in orbit, their crews ready for the inevitable battle. But Reeves knew that brute force wouldn't be enough against the Zephyrians' superior technology. "We need a diversion," Reeves said to his officers. "Something to buy us time for Dr. Vega's weapon to take effect." The plan was simple but dangerous. A small team would infiltrate the Zephyrian mothership again, this time to plant a decoy device that mimicked the bioengineered compound. It would force the Zephyrians to focus their attention inward, giving Earth's forces a critical window to deploy the real weapon. Monroe's infiltration team was called upon once more, their earlier escape earning them a reputation as the best Earth had to offer. Monroe accepted the mission with a grim determination. "We've cheated death once. Let's see if we can do it again." Back in the lab, Vega and her team worked around the clock, racing against the Zephyrians' deadline. The microorganisms proved difficult to manipulate, and the process of amplifying their biochemical properties was unpredictable. One wrong step could render the entire project useless, or worse, dangerous to humans as well. On the fourth day, a breakthrough occurred. Vega's team successfully stabilized the compound, turning it into a bioengineered aerosol that could be dispersed through Earth's atmosphere or directly into the Zephyrian mothership. The weapon was ready for testing. Testing the weapon wasn't without risk. A prototype was deployed in a controlled environment, simulating the conditions aboard a Zephyrian ship. As the aerosol spread, the results were startling. The simulation showed that the compound disrupted the Zephyrians' biological and technological systems, causing their energy weapons to fail and their sentries to collapse. But there was a catch. The compound's effects were temporary, lasting only a few hours before dissipating. Vega frowned as she reviewed the data. "It's not enough," she admitted. "We need more time to amplify it." Hart, watching the simulation from the observation deck, placed a hand on her shoulder. "You've done enough, Doctor. This buys us a fighting chance. Now it's up to the fleet." Monroe's team launched their decoy mission on the sixth day. The cloaked shuttle once again approached the Zephyrian mothership, its crew tense but focused. This time, the ship's defenses were heightened. A fleet of smaller Zephyrian drones patrolled the area, forcing the team to navigate with precision. Inside the mothership, the team planted the decoy device deep within the ship's core, evading detection through sheer luck and skill. But just as they were about to extract, the device emitted a pulse that disrupted the mothership's systems. Alarms blared as Zephyrian sentries swarmed toward them. "It's now or never," Monroe shouted, covering his team as they raced back to the shuttle. The team barely escaped, the shuttle's cloaking device flickering as the Zephyrians fired relentlessly. They returned to Earth with heavy losses but mission accomplished. On the final day, Earth's forces were ready. The bioweapon was loaded onto specialized missiles, and the fleet stood prepared for what could be humanity's last stand. Hart addressed the planet in a live broadcast, his voice firm but inspiring. "This is not the end of humanity," he said. "This is the beginning of our defiance. We may be outmatched, but we are not outwitted. Together, we will show the Zephyrians that Earth is not just a planet. It's a force they cannot conquer." As the broadcast ended, the first wave of Earth's fleet launched toward the Zephyrian mothership, carrying humanity's secret weapon. The battle for survival was about to begin. A deadly gamble. The air in the United Earth Council's war room was thick with tension. Holographic projections of the Zephyrian mothership loomed above the heads of military officers and scientists, their faces grim as they prepared for the inevitable clash. General Aaron Hart stood at the head of the table, his voice unwavering despite the stakes. "The infiltration team has bought us time," Hart said. "The decoy device has disrupted their systems, but it won't last. We launched the bioweapon today." A murmur rippled through the room. Some leaders nodded in agreement. Others exchanged uneasy glances. Prime Minister Nadia Lee leaned forward, her voice measured but firm. "General, this is a dangerous path. If this weapon fails or turns against us, we risk not just our survival, but our planet's future." Hart met her gaze. "If we do nothing, we're already finished. We've tested the weapon. It works. Now we gamble everything on it." High above Earth, Captain Daniel Reeves oversaw the fleet's final preparations. Hundreds of ships, some military, others hastily retrofitted civilian crafts, hovered in formation, their hulls reflecting the light of the distant sun. Reeves paced the command deck of the Erebus, Earth's flagship, his mind racing with strategies. Bioweapon launch is a go, his tactical officer reported. Reeves nodded, staring at the holographic map of the Zephyrian mothership. It pulsed like a living entity, its defensive drones swirling in a deadly pattern. "We need a distraction," Reeves muttered, "something to draw their attention away from the launch." Lieutenant Kira Solis, the Erebus's communications officer, looked up. "What about the supply freighters? They're unarmed, but we could use them to create decoy heat signatures." Reeves hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Do it. Send the freighters into the defensive zone and scramble their signals. It's risky, but we don't have a choice." As the fleet moved into position, Monroe's infiltration team, now back on Earth, watched the operation from a secure bunker. The data they had recovered from the Zephyrian ship haunted them. The aliens weren't just scavengers, they were parasites. They'd done this to dozens of planets, Monroe said quietly, his hands clenched into fists. "We're just another resource to them." Dr. Elena Vega stood beside him, her eyes fixed on the screen showing the fleet. "Not anymore. This time, we're fighting back." In the depths of the Zephyrian mothership, chaos reigned. The decoy device planted by Monroe's team had triggered a system-wide alert, forcing the aliens to divert resources to contain the disruption. Commander Selver, the Zephyrian leader, loomed over a translucent console, his eyes narrowing as he studied the data. "These humans are more cunning than we anticipated," he growled in his guttural language. A subordinate approached, its voice trembling. "Commander, their fleet is advancing. We detect an unusual energy signature within their ships. It could be a weapon." Selver's mandibles clicked in frustration. "Activate the Omega Protocol. No mercy." As Earth's fleet approached the mothership, the Zephyrians launched their counteroffensive. Swarms of drones descended like a plague, their weapons slicing through the void with deadly precision. "Freighters in position," Lieutenant Solis reported on the Erebus. Reeves gave the order. "Activate the decoy signals." The freighters emitted a wave of electromagnetic interference, drawing the drones away from the fleet's core. The maneuver worked, but at a cost. The unarmed freighters were destroyed within minutes. "Sacrifices we had to make," Reeves muttered grimly. Inside the Erebus, the countdown to the bioweapon launch began. Dr. Vega's voice crackled over the intercom from her lab on Earth. "The weapons dispersal system is primed, but there's a complication," she said, her tone urgent. Hart, who was monitoring the operation from Earth, frowned. "What kind of complication?" "The compound is reacting unpredictably under the conditions we simulated in the Zephyrian environment. If it spreads too quickly, it could destabilize their mothership's core." Hart's brow furrowed. "And what happens if the core destabilizes?" "It could implode, taking half of Earth's orbit with it." Reeves received the update moments later. He stood silent for a beat, the weight of the decision pressing down on him. "Abort the launch," he said finally. Hart's voice crackled over the comms. "Captain Reeves, I understand the risk, but if we don't act now, we may not get another chance." Reeves stared at the screen, watching the Zephyrian drones regroup. His jaw tightened. "Give me a moment to create an opening. Then we launch." The Erebus surged forward, its cannons blazing as it cut a path through the Zephyrian defenses. Smaller Earth ships followed, their pilots fighting with a mixture of fear and determination. The weapon was launched. A sleek missile containing the aerosolized compound streaked toward the mothership, its trajectory precise. The Zephyrians detected it too late. The missile struck the mothership's outer hull, and the compound began to spread. Inside the alien ship, chaos erupted as systems failed and sentries collapsed. The bioengineered microorganism worked as intended, destabilizing the Zephyrians' biological processes and rendering their technology inert. But then, the unexpected happened. The mothership's core began to pulse violently, its energy readings spiking. On the Erebus, alarms blared. "Sir, the core's destabilizing," Solis shouted. Reeves gritted his teeth. "All ships, retreat to a safe distance. Now." The fleet pulled back, watching as the Zephyrian mothership writhed like a wounded beast. Explosions rippled across its surface, and for a moment, it seemed the ship would collapse in on itself. But instead, it released a shockwave of energy, disabling Earth's fleet momentarily. The mothership still stood, battered but alive. On Earth, Hart clenched his fists. "The gamble wasn't enough," he muttered. Dr. Vega's voice broke the silence. "It's not over yet. We still have one chance left." The stage was set for the final confrontation. Earth's survival would depend on one last desperate move. The battle begins. The shockwave rippled through space, shaking the Erebus and the entire Earth fleet. Captain Daniel Reeves gripped the railing on the command deck as sparks flew from damaged consoles. The holographic display flickered back to life, revealing the battered but still intact Zephyrian mothership. "They're still standing," Reeves growled, frustration etched into his face. Lieutenant Kira Solis steadied herself and checked her console. "We've sustained damage across 40% of the fleet, but most systems are operational." Reeves nodded sharply. "They're wounded. That means they can bleed. Let's finish this." Inside the Zephyrian mothership, Commander Zelver staggered through the corridors, the effects of the bioweapon still rippling through his body. His once commanding frame looked weaker, his shimmering blue skin dimmed to a pale gray. He leaned heavily on a crystalline staff for support as his remaining sentries buzzed nervously around him. "Status report." Zelver barked, his voice trembling but defiant. A subordinate trembled before him. "Our core is destabilized, Commander. Systems are failing across the ship. Our fleet cannot hold much longer." Zelver's dark eyes narrowed. "Deploy the Harbinger weapon. If we fall, we will take the humans with us." The subordinate hesitated. "But, Commander, the Harbinger has never been tested. It cold." "Do it," Zelver roared, his voice echoing through the chamber. On the Erebus, alarms blared as Solis shouted, "New energy signature detected, Captain." "It's massive." Reeves turned to the tactical display, watching as a section of the Zephyrian mothership unfolded to reveal a colossal weapon, an ancient device pulsing with chaotic energy. "That's not good," Reeves muttered. "What's the readout on that thing?" Solis scanned quickly. "It's emitting gravitational anomalies. If it fires, it could rip apart Earth's atmosphere, or worse." Reeves clenched his fists. "We can't let that happen. Patch me through to the fleet." The comms crackled as his voice filled every ship. "This is Captain Reeves. We're up against something we've never seen before, but we've trained for this. Every second counts. Target the mothership's weapon and disable it at all costs. Humanity is counting on us." The fleet's counterattack. The Earth fleet surged forward like a swarm of hornets, their weapons lighting up the void. Fighters darted around the Zephyrian drones, creating distractions while bombers targeted the massive Harbinger weapon. The Erebus led the charge, its railguns firing with relentless precision. Explosions peppered the mothership's surface as Earth's missiles struck home. The Harbinger began to charge, its energy field growing unstable, but the humans pressed on. Inside the mothership, Zelver watched the display, his weakened body trembling with rage. "They refuse to kneel," he muttered, "but they will learn." He activated the Harbinger's secondary protocol, a gravitational pulse designed to crush any nearby ships. On Earth, in the United Earth Council war room, General Aaron Hart watched the battle unfold on massive screens. The Harbinger's gravitational pulse began to ripple through space, and Earth's fleet struggled to maintain formation. "We need to disable that weapon now," Hart barked. "What's the status of Dr. Vega's secondary plan?" Dr. Elena Vega looked up from her console. "The bioweapon's secondary dispersal system is ready. It's risky, but if we can deploy it inside the Harbinger, it might neutralize the energy buildup." Hart nodded. "Do it." The final push. On board the Erebus, Reeves received the update. "Dr. Vega's solution is our best shot," Solis said, her voice tight. Reeves turned to his crew. Who can get the dispersal system inside that weapon? A young pilot, Lieutenant Jade Carter, stepped forward. I can do it, sir. My ship's small enough to get through their defenses. Reeves locked eyes with her, his expression heavy. It's a one-way trip, Carter. You know that. She smiled faintly. If it saves Earth, it's worth it. Carter launched her fighter, the bioweapons dispersal system attached to its hull. She weaved through the chaos, dodging Zephorian drones and debris. Inside the mothership, Selver watched her approach. Focus all fire on that fighter, he commanded. Carter's ship shuddered as enemy fire clipped her wings, but she pressed on, her hand steady on the controls. Almost there, she murmured. The Harbinger loomed before her, its energy field crackling dangerously. With a final burst of speed, she activated the dispersal system and ejected, her fighter colliding with the weapon. The explosion. The bioweapons compound spread rapidly through the Harbinger's energy field, destabilizing it. The massive device trembled, its power source collapsing in on itself. A chain reaction ignited, sending shockwaves rippling through the Zephorian mothership. On the Erebus, Reeves watched as the mothership began to break apart. Pull back, he ordered. Get everyone clear of the blast zone. Earth's fleet retreated as the mothership erupted in a blinding explosion, pieces of alien debris scattering into the void. The aftermath. In the war room, cheers erupted as the Zephorian mothership disintegrated. General Hart allowed himself a rare smile, but his eyes were somber. The battle is won, but the war isn't over, he said quietly. On the Erebus, Reeves stared at the debris field, thinking of Carter's sacrifice and the countless lives lost in the fight. Humanity's still standing, he murmured. That's what matters. Far away, drifting among the wreckage, a small escape pod carried a weakened but defiant Selver. His eyes burned with hatred as he whispered, "This isn't over, humans. Not by a long shot." Earth had won the first battle, but everyone knew the Zephorians would return. And next time, they'd be even more dangerous, turning the tide. The aftermath of the Zephorian mothership's destruction was bittersweet. Debris from the alien ship floated in orbit, reflecting sunlight like shards of glass. Earth's fleet limped back to its stations, battered but victorious. Yet, the victory felt fragile, temporary. Everyone knew the Zephorians wouldn't give up so easily. On board the Erebus, Captain Daniel Reeves paced the command deck, his thoughts heavy. The battle was over, but the war wasn't. His crew, exhausted and bruised, worked silently to repair the ship's systems. "We've won the first round," Lieutenant Kira Solis said, breaking the silence. "But what's next? We know they won't stop." Reeves nodded grimly. "We need to strike before they regroup. If we let them recover, they'll bring something even worse." A message crackled over the comms. It was General Aaron Hart, his voice sharp and commanding. "Captain Reeves, return to Earth immediately. We've received intelligence that changes everything." Back on Earth. In the United Earth Council's war room, Hart stood before a holographic map of the solar system. Dr. Elena Vega and her team were also present, looking more exhausted than ever. The room buzzed with tension as Reeves appeared on the main screen. "What's the situation, General?" Reeves asked. Hart gestured to the map. "Our sensors have picked up a massive energy signature just outside the Kuiper Belt. It's a Zephorian fleet, bigger than anything we've seen." The room fell silent. "How big are we talking?" Reeves asked, his voice steady but tense. Vega stepped forward. "This isn't just a fleet. It's an armada. Our best estimates put their numbers at over 1,000 ships." Gasps rippled through the room. Reeves clenched his fists. "They're bringing everything they've got." Hart nodded. "And they're not just coming for Earth. They've already sent smaller forces to Mars and Europa. They're wiping out every trace of human civilization in the system." A new plan. "We need a counteroffensive," Hart said. "But we can't match their firepower head-on." "That's where you come in, Dr. Vega." Vega nodded, pulling up a holographic projection of the bioweapons compound. The compound we developed worked on a smaller scale, but if we can amplify it further, we could turn it into a system-wide weapon. We're calling it the exogenesis protocol. Solus raised an eyebrow. System-wide. Are you saying this could take out their entire fleet? Vega hesitated. In theory, yes. But there's a catch. To deploy it on that scale, we need to use Earth's magnetosphere to broadcast the compound. It would spread across the solar system, but it could also have unpredictable effects on Earth itself. What kind of effects? Reeves asked. Vega sighed. Anything from minor atmospheric changes to catastrophic ecological disruption. We simply don't know. Hart's voice was firm. If we don't try, there won't be an Earth left to protect. The final preparations. The plan was risky, but it was their only shot. Earth's remaining fleet would launch a diversionary attack on the Zephyrian Armada, buying time for the exogenesis protocol to activate. Reeves was chosen to lead the fleet. His ship, the Erebus, was outfitted with a prototype amplifier that would act as the trigger for the system-wide dispersal. In the lab, Vega worked tirelessly with her team to stabilize the compound. Every second counted. The clock was ticking down to the Zephyrian fleet's arrival. Moments before the battle, Reeves stood on the Erebus's observation deck, looking out at Earth. The planet seemed so small, so fragile from up here. Solus joined him, her voice soft. Think this will work? Reeves didn't answer immediately. Finally, he said, I don't know, but I know we have to try. Back on Earth, Hart addressed the planet in what might be his final broadcast. His voice was steady, filled with determination. Humanity has faced impossible odds before. We have endured, we have adapted, and we have survived. Today, we face an enemy that seeks to erase us from existence, but we will not go quietly. We will fight, and we will prevail. The battle begins. Earth's fleet surged into the void, meeting the Zephyrian Armada head-on. The sky lit up with explosions as ships collided in a brutal exchange of firepower. Despite their best efforts, the Zephyrians' sheer numbers overwhelmed the human fleet. Erebus to all ships, Reeves shouted over the comms. Hold the line. We need every second we can get. Inside the Erebus, Solus monitored the exogenesis system. Amplifier is online, but the signal isn't strong enough. We need more power. Reeves clenched his fists. Divert all non-essential systems to the amplifier. Shields, weapons, everything. But sir, that's an order. A race against time. On Earth, Vega's team initiated the exogenesis protocol. The compound began to spread, its reach amplified by the planet's magnetic field, but the process was unstable. Energy levels are spiking, Vega said, her voice strained. If we push any further, we could overload the entire system. Hart placed a hand on her shoulder. We're out of options, Doctor. Do it. The turning point. As the compound spread, the effects became visible. Zephyrian ships faltered, their energy systems failing one by one. The Armada's formation broke apart, and the remaining human ships pressed the advantage. On the Erebus, Reeves watched as the Zephyrian fleet began to collapse. It's working, he said, a hint of relief in his voice. But then, the Erebus's systems began to fail. Solus looked at him, her face pale. We've lost all power. The amplifier is burning out. Reeves nodded grimly. Get to the escape pods. That's an order. What about you, sir? I'll finish this. As the Erebus drifted toward the heart of the Zephyrian Armada, Reeves activated the ship's final override, ensuring the amplifier would release one last pulse. The ship erupted in a brilliant explosion, taking the core of the enemy fleet with it. Victory and sacrifice. On Earth, the Zephyrian fleet's destruction was met with cheers, but the cost was clear. Reeves and countless others had given their lives to turn the tide. Hart stood before the council, his voice heavy. We have won the battle, but we must remain vigilant. The Zephyrians underestimated us once. They won't make that mistake again. Vega looked out at the recovering planet. Earth had survived, but at a cost that would never be forgotten. Extinction or survival. The aftermath of the battle rippled across Earth and the solar system. Fragments of the Zephyrian armada drifted in silence, their once unstoppable presence reduced to floating wreckage. On Earth, humanity celebrated, but their joy was tempered by the weight of loss and an unshakable truth. The Zephyrians were not eradicated. Their next move was only a matter of time. The Council's debate. In the United Earth Council war room, the mood was somber. General Aaron Hart stood at the head of the table, flanked by Dr. Elena Vega and surviving fleet commanders. The holographic display showed a reconstruction of the battle. Victory, but at an unspeakable cost. "We've bought ourselves time," Hart said, his voice steady. "But the Zephyrians will regroup. We need to decide our next move before they strike again." Prime Minister Nadia Lee, still shaken from the crisis, leaned forward. "We've seen their capacity for destruction. Can we really survive another attack?" Dr. Vega hesitated before speaking. "The exogenesis protocol worked, but it wasn't a permanent solution. We destabilized their fleet, but we didn't eliminate their leadership or their resources. There's a high chance they'll evolve to counter our weapon." Hart nodded grimly. "Then we need to take the fight to them." The room fell silent. No one had considered the possibility of attacking the Zephyrian homeworld, the hidden signal. Meanwhile, deep in a Zephyrian wreckage orbiting Mars, a covert human reconnaissance team discovered something shocking. A faint signal was transmitting from a damaged Zephyrian core, coordinates to their homeworld. The team's leader, Commander Janice Hayes, relayed the discovery to Earth. "It's a warning. They're recalling their forces to regroup at a central command point. This could be our only chance to strike." The final plan. Back on Earth, Hart and Vega presented the intelligence to the Council. The decision was unanimous. Humanity would launch a preemptive strike against the Zephyrian homeworld. Dr. Vega introduced a final iteration of the bioweapon, codenamed Oblivion Protocol. Unlike the previous versions, it was designed to permanently alter the Zephyrians' genetic structure, rendering them incapable of sustaining their parasitic way of life. "There's no coming back from this," Vega warned. "If we deploy this, we're not just disabling them. We're ending their ability to exist as they are." Hart's gaze hardened. "They gave us no choice." The journey to the Zephyrian homeworld. A fleet of Earth's finest ships embarked on the perilous journey, led by the Eclipse, humanity's new flagship. Its captain, Janice Hayes, carried the weight of humanity's hopes. On board were Dr. Vega and a team tasked with deploying the Oblivion Protocol directly into the Zephyrian Command Core. As they approached the coordinates, the fleet encountered remnants of the Zephyrian Defense Forces, smaller but still formidable. A brutal skirmish ensued, with Earth's fleet narrowly breaking through. "This is it," Hayes announced as the Zephyrian homeworld came into view. The planet glowed faintly, its surface covered in biomechanical structures that pulsated like living organs. The final infiltration. Hayes led a strike team to the planet's surface, their mission to reach the Central Command Core and deploy the Oblivion Protocol. The environment was hostile, with the air thick and acidic, the ground alive with Zephyrian defenses. Dr. Vega carried the bioweapon in a reinforced container, her hand steady despite the danger. "This will only work if we can get it directly into their core," she said. The team navigated through relentless attacks, their numbers dwindling with each step. Finally, they reached the command core, a massive, pulsating structure that radiated energy. Hayes looked at Vega. "It's your show now." Vega approached the core, connecting the bioweapon to the alien interface. The core reacted violently, its energy flaring as it tried to resist. "It's fighting back," Vega shouted. "I need more time." The Zephyrian counterstrike. Above the planet, Earth's fleet faced the remainder of the Zephyrian forces. Captain Solis, now commanding the Erebus II, coordinated the battle. "Hold the line," she ordered. "Give the strike team every second they need." The fleet fought valiantly, But the Zephyrians unleashed their final weapon, a planetary defense system that began tearing through Earth's ships. "We're outmatched," Solus muttered, but her resolve never wavered. "All ships, focus fire on the planetary weapon. Extinction or survival." Inside the command core, Vega activated the Oblivion protocol. The device pulsed, releasing the engineered compound into the core's system. The structure trembled violently, and the team barely managed to escape as the core began to collapse. Above the planet, the effects were immediate. Zephyrian ships faltered and fell, their systems shutting down as the Oblivion protocol spread. On the surface, the biomechanical structures disintegrated, their energy sources failing. Hayes and her team watched from their escape craft as the Zephyrian planet began to unravel. "It's working," Vega whispered, a mix of relief and sorrow in her voice. "The price of victory." The Earth fleet regrouped, battered but victorious. The Zephyrian threat was neutralized, their ability to wage war permanently dismantled. Back on Earth, General Hart addressed the planet. His voice was steady, but his expression carried the weight of the cost. "Today, we secured humanity's survival. We faced an enemy that sought to erase us, and we prevailed. But let us never forget the sacrifices made to ensure this victory. This was not just a fight for survival. It was a fight for our right to exist." Dr. Vega, watching the broadcast, sat in silence. The Oblivion Protocol had saved humanity, but at the cost of annihilating an entire way of life. "We didn't just survive," she said softly. "We changed the galaxy forever." Epilogue. Far beyond the ruins of the Zephyrian homeworld, a faint signal pulsed. A single Zephyrian ship, carrying Commander Zelver and a handful of survivors, drifted into the void. "They think they've won," Zelver hissed, his weakened form still burning with rage. "But extinction is never final." Humanity's victory was complete, but the shadow of the Zephyrians lingered, a reminder that survival was only the beginning of a larger story.